Phantom Abyss has a really good whip. That's actually the main motivator of me making this video. I don't normally do videos about early access games, but I wanted to come here today to tell you all about that whip. Although using the whip in the capacity you'd expect to use a whip in feels very good when you whip it forward, it's very crunchy, very good sound effects there when you're opening boxes or smashing vases from a distance. It's got a very good whoopah to it. But that's not even the best thing that whip does. No, its best function is as a grappling hook. You see, in Phantom Abyss, you play as an adventurer who's trying to retrieve a relic from the middle of an ancient temple. These temples are dangerous. They're filled with traps, high ledges, and lots of holes you can fall down and die in. And although the game features some excellent movement mechanics that feel very close to the ones found in something like Mirror's Edge, it's actually the whip that you'll be using for the majority of your time with the game. Right-clicking allows you to highlight any part of the environment within your whip's limited range, and left-click will snap you towards it. Although maybe it's not like a simple grappling hook, maybe it's more like the blink ability that can be found in Arkane's Dishonored. You have a limited range and a little bit of a cooldown before you can use it again, and just like in most Arkane games, it's there to enhance your movement abilities rather than serving as some kind of additional power-up. It is as integral to your ability to move through these spaces as your simple jump or climb ability. I think making a game feel good to play is such a dark art. From my limited understanding, the only way that a company such as Arkane can make a game feel that good to play is through constant iteration, not being afraid to throw out mechanics that aren't working, and basically just years of trial and error. I guess really all you have to do is make sure that that core mechanic, that one main thing that the player will be spending the majority of their time doing, feels perfect. Regardless of everything else around it, if you've got that core mechanic nailed down, you have an incredibly strong foundation to build upon. Phantom Abyss has that whip. That wonderful whip. That whip that arcs you towards your destination, flinging you forward in a beautiful curve. It has a bit of nuance to it, a little bit of a trick to learn through play. It doesn't quite work in the same way that other grappling hooks or teleport abilities do in other games, and it's all the better for that. When I first saw Phantom Abyss at this year's Devolver Digital E3 presentation, I was immediately excited by its core concept. At its heart, Phantom Abyss presents itself as an asynchronous multiplayer experience. Each temple in the game is procedurally generated and can only be completed by one player. If you die, and you will because this game is very difficult, you cannot attempt the temple again. Each temple you try is completely unique and is more often than not populated by the replay ghosts of adventurers who have died before you. As a core hook, this idea is so simple I'm almost surprised it's never been attempted before. This idea of other players being able to help you despite not actually being a part of your game feels a bit like an extension of what From Software have been doing in their Souls games for a very long time, and like I mentioned before, movement-wise the game feels like it's very much been inspired by things like Mirror's Edge and anything Arkane have made over the past decade. There's also a healthy bit of Spelunky thrown in there for good measure, and as an amalgamation of all of these pretty prevalent ideas, Phantom Abyss does end up feeling quite unique. Throw in that whip, that beautiful whip that I can't stop thinking about, and you have something that's starting to feel, even in this very early access form, like it could be something very special indeed. It's not just the movement mechanics that feel very considered or well thought out. There is a weird sense of community to seeing all of these ghosts running around the level at the same time as you. Despite the fact that none of these players made it to the end of the temple, they can help you out a little bit. They can direct you to hidden chests, they can help you avoid traps, either by avoiding them themselves or by succumbing to them, which is a pretty good indication that you should be more careful, but at the same time they can almost lead you astray. You can almost rely on them too much and end up meeting the same grim fate that they did. It doesn't help that the phantoms can actually influence the world that you're in. If they open a chest, it will actually open in your instance, and some traps will trigger when the phantoms are near it, as well as yourself, which can really throw you off. What I found to be most interesting about the Phantom system is that you almost start to play in the mindset of a cooperative game, even though you never directly interact with another player. Not only do you start to appreciate having these ghosts you can't communicate with, to the point where when I would reach a part of the temple no one else had gotten to yet, it would feel quite lonely, but you almost start to think to yourself as you uncover new chests that have never been opened or maneuver past a trap in an interesting way that avoids you taking damage. You think to yourself, well, if I die, at least I can be comforted in the knowledge that I might help someone else achieve that lofty goal. The traps are brilliant. The best thing about the traps themselves, which are your primary antagonist when playing the game, is that they are really, really good at letting you know that they're about to mess you up. All traps have a split-second window before they activate, and this is highlighted by, well, literally highlighting the traps. Everything changes colour for a second before it launches down or spits out of a wall, and despite the first-person perspective, it makes everything feel incredibly clear and readable. When you first start playing and you get to grips with the controls and the movement mechanics, you might start to realise that A, you can launch over 90% of the traps using that glorious whip to the point where you don't even have to worry about them most of the time, and B, because the traps have such lengthy tells, you can just chill out and take things slow. Yes, all these other phantoms might be racing through the level, but maybe that's how they met their end. You can just take your time and saunter through. No, you can't, actually. Sorry to burst your bubble there. In another carefully considered move of game design brilliance, the developer has introduced a feature known as Guardians. Each temple is protected by a guardian, basically a giant floating head that will pursue you in some form or another if you're taking your damn time. These guardians become more powerful the further you get through the temple, and each one has a unique ability. One throws gas bombs at you, one shoots a giant heat ray laser, and one literally just pursues you, trying to eat you, and it can go through walls. That one's horrible. That one really shits you up. Yes, they all have different abilities, but really they all serve the same purpose, which is to get you to keep moving. They encourage you to panic, take risks, and that is the biggest killer in Phantom Abyss. Now, as you can probably tell, I have had a huge amount of fun playing Phantom Abyss so far. However, my biggest and probably only issue with the game is that it just doesn't feel quite finished yet. Thankfully, the game is in early access, so this probably isn't too much of an issue moving forward, but right now, as I record this video in July 2021, Phantom Abyss feels like it has its core mechanics nailed down perfectly. Those foundations are solid as a rock, but it just needs everything else around it to be built up a little bit more. Because these tombs are randomly generated from a set amount of pieces, including traps and room layouts, after about 3 hours, you start to see a lot of the same stuff. Repetition is probably the biggest problem with the game at this point. But really, that's something that can be solved super easily in future updates. Most procedurally generated games, such as Hades, have been improved through the process of early access by adding in things like new biomes, new abilities, basically adding in new content that complements that core gameplay, which, as I will say one last time, right now is already solid as a rock. So to summarise, Phantom Abyss in its current form is good. It might not keep you engaged for very long, but I really enjoyed what I played, and I think it has an enormous amount of potential. I mean, that's the primary motivator for this video. I don't normally do videos on games I've only played for a few hours. I don't normally do videos on games that are in early access, but there's just something to this. Cracking that whip to just pull yourself away from danger at the very last second, it feels incredible. And for that reason alone, I just want to put Phantom Abyss a little bit higher on your radar. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I wanted to get my thoughts about this game online in some form, but couldn't think of the best way of doing it. If you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe for more videos about indie games, and I'll see you next time.